Stick around to see how I turn these simple sentiment strips into a striking design. Hey everyone, it's Carissa Wiley here for Altenew. Thanks for joining me today. Today I am sharing two striking card designs that feature simple sentiment strips created with the new One Go Solid Sentiment Strips 2 press plate. Isn't that a mouthful? So here's a look at that press plate. You can see that you're going to create several sentiment strips all in one go with either your BetterPress letterpress system or your hot foil system. And I'm going to show you both versions today. We're going to create several sentiment strips. Now this coordinates with the original die released with the One Go Solid Sentiment Strips 1 press plate. And I love that you can use one die for multiple press plates in your stash. I'm starting out with my BetterPress system, and you can see I've lifted the magnetic mat and just kind of repositioned everything. The thing about this magnetic mat is it does have a little bit of wiggle room, and if you're wanting to press a plate multiple times in the same spot, I like to kind of take the wiggle out of that magnetic mat. So I use some Altenew satin masking tape to hold that magnetic mat in place. That takes the wiggle out of the mat, and if I have to re-ink a plate and kind of run it through my die cutting machine again for a second pass with the press plate, this prevents anything from shifting and moving. So now that that's secured, I'm going to add my press plate with the design side facing up onto the magnetic mat. It's being held in place by that magnetic mat. And now I'm going to prepare my cardstock. You can see I'm lining it up with the A2 grid lines on the platen, which is this clear plastic plate that comes with the BetterPress system. And I'm holding it in place with just a little bit of that satin masking tape again. Now I have the orange sorbet fresh dye ink. This is one of my favorite colors from Altenew. It's a newer color. It is so beautiful. And I'm going to start inking up the press plate by swirling my ink pad over the press plate. Once I've swirled it over the press plate, then I'm going to go back and kind of tap to make sure that I have all areas of the press plate covered with ink. Now, I do want to mention I am not using a ton of pressure when I swirl because I don't want to shift my press plate around. I want it to be held in the same place. Now, once it's inked up, I'm going to take the platen and I'm going to set it on the magnetic feet of the chase, which is the base of this BetterPress system. And I'm going to run it through my die cut machine. And this is going to press that press plate into the cardstock and transfer the ink. You can see I have my beautiful sentiment strips here in that beautiful orange sorbet color. Now I'll remove this cardstock from the platen and I'm going to repeat this process with a couple more colors. So I have another piece of white cardstock here. I'm securing it to the platen using those same pieces of satin masking tape. And then I'm going to ink up the press plate again. This time I'm using Apricot Dreams. Once that's inked up, I'll take the platen, place it on those magnetic feet and run that back through my die cut machine again. And now you can see I have a second color. Now the third color is called Terracotta, and it's not actually in the same color family, but I think it works so nicely with these other colors. So I've run that through. I have 3 different colors, and now I'm going to clean my press plate, and I'm just using a baby wipe for this. When you're using these dye inks, the baby wipe is pretty effective at removing all of the ink. You may notice some staining on your press plates, and that's totally normal, and it will not affect it in the future. Once I have it cleaned, I'm going to use my Perfect Picker to help me get it off of that magnetic mat. And then I am going to make sure it's dry and place it onto my Glimmer hot foil system. You can see that I already have it turned on as indicated by that red light at the top. And now I've grabbed some Altenew hot foil rolls. This champagne color has to be one of my favorites. And I'm just going to pull off a piece that's large enough to cover my press plate and trim that down. I like to do this while my Glimmer hot foil machine is kind of heating up. Now, once it's heated up, you'll notice that green light comes on. I'm going to go ahead and hit the timer button. That lower light is going to be flashing. When it's solid, then I know the timer is completed. Now that it's complete, I can remove the platform from the base and take it over to my die cut machine where I'm going to add the foil with the pretty side facing the design or the pretty side of my press plate. Then I'm going to add my smooth white cardstock. And I'll grab the two shims that came with my hot foil system. It's a thin shim and a spacer pad, and I'll place that on top of this and run it through my die cut machine. The heat and the pressure created by the Glimmer hot foil system, it's what's going to transfer the foil over to my smooth white cardstock. Now, there's a few things you want to look for if you're not getting great results. Number one is heat. Make sure that your hot foil system is getting hot enough to transfer the foil. The second is pressure. Now, I have noticed recently that my die cut machine is getting a little looser, so sometimes I need an additional shim of cardstock. And the final factor that really can affect your foiling results is the cardstock that you're using. You want to make sure you're using a smooth white cardstock. Now I'm going to foil this again using the light copper foil, and this time I'm using a thin cardstock shim between my two plates, and I'm running this through my die cut machine. I did find this gave me a little bit better results. It transferred the foil more completely because, as I mentioned, my die cut machine is getting on the older side. I use it quite a bit, and I think it's loosening up just a bit. But look at these results. There is absolutely nothing like foiling, and these Altenew hot foil colors are beautiful. There are several colors available, so you'll want to check those out on the website. Now that I'm done with all my better press and all my hot foiling, I am going to die cut all of these sentiment strips. So I'm lining up this One Go sentiment strips die. I'm just making sure that everything's kind of straight within the openings, and then I'm going to hold it in place once again with the same exact pieces of satin masking tape that I used before, and I'll run this through my die cut machine to die cut all of these sentiments at once. Now, I've created 3 different colors using the Better Press system and 2 colors of hot foil using my hot foil system. So I have several sentiment strips that are ready to go. The sentiments included on this new One Go Solid Sentiments 2 edition are all about celebrations, and they're perfect for upcoming weddings, baby showers, and graduations. You can see that the press plate actually creates a little bit of a bleed, so even if you don't get your die perfectly in place, you are going to have edge-to-edge coverage. I'm just running these through my die cut machine so that all of these are ready to go. You can see that light copper there. You can see the champagne foil versions. And then I have my 3 Better Press colors as well, kind of in that ombre color scheme. Now that I have all of these sentiment strips, I'm going to create a striking design, something that's really graphic using all the various colors. And I thought one way to use these would be to kind of stack up several of these sentiment strips, kind of like bricks where they're offset just a little bit, and create a fun, bold stripe across the bottom of my card. Since I had an arrangement that I liked, I went ahead and took my cell phone and snapped a picture of it so I wouldn't forget where everything goes. And now I'm going to create a background for this sentiment strip design. I'm using the Flowering Quince stamp set, and I'm positioning this in the center of my Stamp Wheel 2.0. I have the stamp kind of at an angle across the front of an A2 size card front. So this is just a panel of cardstock that measures 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. I'm picking up the stamp using the flip plate of the stamp wheel, and then I'm going to ink this up using the Choco Hazelnut color. I thought it would be really nice to use a brown kind of neutral color to blend in with these beautiful oranges and golds that I have created my sentiment strips with. I'm going to flip the flip plate over and stamp that onto my cardstock. And now I have this beautiful floral background for my sentiment strip design. To adhere these onto the card front, I really wanted them to have some dimension. So I grabbed the 1/4 inch wide instant dimension foam tape. This is the 1/8 inch thick version, so it's a little bit thicker than your standard foam tape. And this fit perfectly on the back side of these sentiment strips. So I'm going to add that foam adhesive, and I'm starting out with this foiled version, which is kind of the centerpiece of my design. And I'm placing that at an angle on my card front. Then I'm going to start building in all of the other strips around it. Once I have that focal point where I want it, I'm going to just add the other sentiment strips in various colors, and I'm just going to butt these up against that first sentiment strip that I laid down, making sure that everything kind of lines up straight. I'll trim off any of the excess that's hanging over the card front using a pair of scissors, and I'm just going to continue to build my design. Now, something you want to think about as you're adding your sentiment strips, you really kind of want to offset them like bricks. So you don't want them all to start on the same line or end on the same line. You kind of want to stagger them like bricks. So I'm making sure that I do that as I lay them onto my card front. Now, once I had all of them adhered, I'm going to do something really brave. I'm going to trim this panel down. Now, I should have done this before I started adding my sentiment strips, but honestly, I didn't even realize I would want to trim this down. I thought this would be a full panel design, and I decided I wanted a little bit of a border. So I'm just using a guillotine trimmer to trim off about 1/8 of an inch on all sides of this design. To add a little shine, I'm taking a glue pen. Now, this is a glue pen where the glue dries tacky, and I'm going around the outer edge of this panel, and I am going to then take the leftover pieces of my foil once it dries and press it onto the edge of this dried glue. And that's going to transfer that hot foil onto the glue and create kind of a sparkly or shiny edge on this card front. I think it's absolutely beautiful. I showed this on my YouTube channel a couple of weeks ago and everybody loved it, so I wanted to show it here as well. It's a great way to kind of use those foil leftovers that you kind of tend to throw in the trash. And it's a great way to add just a little bit of shine or a touch of sparkle to just about anything. So I added some foam adhesive on the back of this card front. I used the 1 inch wide and the 1/16 inch thick to place this onto my card front, and I created the card out of some Sand Dunes cardstock, and I'm giving you a little sneak peek of something that's coming soon. These stellar sequins in the gold are absolutely beautiful. I'm just adhering them on using my Perfect Picker tool and the new glue that's coming from Altenew soon. So you're kind of getting a sneak peek of some products that are yet to come. Now for card number 2, I wanted to keep it really simple. I am using the Gilded Marble press plate and some orange sorbet ink to press this design onto some white cardstock. You can see I created an ombre version first on the other side of this cardstock, and I decided I didn't like the intensity of it, so I just redid it on the back side. For this design, I'm just going to use 4 sentiment strips in the center, kind of in an ombre fashion, but I wanted to make sure that they were all straight on my card front. So I brought in my Stamp Wheel 2.0, and I'm using that sticky grid that's inside to kind of line up all my sentiment strips. Now the bottom one will be foil, but I didn't want to put tape over my foiled sentiment strip because it can lift the foil. So I had a little extra sentiment strip there. It was kind of in the packaging, something I had already created. So I used that kind of as a stand-in for my foil sentiment strip. Once I had them lined up, I picked them all up with some satin masking tape, and I added a little bit of that foam adhesive, that 1/4 inch wide foam adhesive on the back of each of these sentiment strips. Once I have foam adhesive on the backs of all of these, I'm going to remove the backer, and then I can use that satin masking tape to position all 4 of these sentiment strips at once on my card front. I decided to go ahead and position it back on my Stamp Wheel 2.0 because it gives me some grid lines that I can really work with to make sure all of these sentiment strips are straight on my card front. And you can see I'm just taking my time to place these down onto the card front, making sure they're all straight, they're all in line. And once they're positioned, I can remove that satin masking tape, add some liquid glue over that bottom sentiment strip, and place my foiled sentiment on top of what I call kind of that dummy strip that's at the bottom. I finished this card design off with some more of the stellar sequins that are coming. These are the dazzling diamond ones, and I think I am obsessed with these. I added this card front onto a pastel sunrise card base, and that finishes off card number 2. And I love that these card designs feature sentiment strips in a really bold and striking way. So keep in mind that your sentiment strips don't always have to be just like an accent. They can actually take center stage on your card design. Now, as always, I will have links to the featured products used in these projects in the description at YouTube. So if you're looking for something in particular, be sure you check there. Or you can head on over to the coordinating blog post. That will be in the YouTube description below as well. Over there, you'll find more still shots, more information, and a complete list of supplies. As always, I want to say thanks so much for stopping by and hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed these projects, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications here so you don't miss any of the paper crafting and card making video tutorials shared. I'm so glad you're here. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.
Hey there, Lydia here. I really do hope that you've just enjoyed the video. If so, please subscribe to the Altenew YouTube channel. Also, turn on the notification bell so you can get your daily dose of crafty techniques and tutorials just like this. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.